Well, hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and this is your friend, No Way. On this episode of We Must Save Our Children, we need to look at the past to see where our future is. What is it in the past that has brought this to the future? And why are we repeating it? Just in a different form. It's the same propaganda, it's the same ideology of the communist entity, better known in America as the Democrat Progressive Party. They're not democratic. This is not a democracy. This is a constitutional republic. But yet, the indoctrination of our children, they have no clue. But let's start here with right here. History Stories. This is actually an article from the History Channel. So we have to take that with a grain of salt because they will water things down. They will not tell the full truth. They'll tell a half-truth. So we need to clarify that. But they are right on a few points. How the Hitler Youth turned a generation of kids into Nazis. The first thing he did is Hitler went after the Boy Scouts. We know Boy Scouts International. It was just, that's what it was. It was teaching respect and honor and Christianity even. It was cementing the Christianity into these young boys to grow up to be respectful, productive men in society. What's happening in America today? Boy Scouts can't be Boy Scouts because it's filled with homosexual troop leaders, and now through the indoctrination they are forced to put women into the Boy Scouts. You don't see them demanding that boys go into the Girl Scouts now, do you? No. But girls must be allowed into the Boy Scouts. So think of this. Now, when Hitler came forth, as other boys cheered, the 17-year-old was surrounded by a gang of Nazi youth, one of whom had a knife. This boy was stabbed, but this boy did not want the Hitler Youth. He wanted the Boy Scouts. Well, what happened? He was attacked by the Nazi youth because he would not conform. We've told you of this, and I've mentioned this numerous times. This is how Hitler did it. This is the indoctrination. They weren't being taught reading, writing, and arithmetic because, see, and of course they elaborate on this, on the Boy Scouts when it comes to this. One thing that is kind of funny, they do start talking. It did not come around in 1933 when Hitler came into power. This is not when the Hitler Youth started. They did admit here it was invented by the Nazis since 1922. The National Socialist, it was the National Workers' Socialist Party of Germany, the Nazi Party. That's what it was. In January 1933, there were 50,000 members of the Hitler Youth. By the end of the year, there were more than 2 million. And as the 1930s progressed, the Nazis waged war on the groups so popular among German youth. First, they banned children's groups associated with political movements like communism. Yeah, when Hitler was nothing more than a communist dictator himself. And in 1936, they banned all youth groups, including the Boy Scouts, and forced members to become part of the Hitler Youth instead. Jewish children were banned from participation in this. We knew that was coming. one thing they did finally tell the truth of, by 1939, over 90% of German children were part of the Hitler Youth Organization. So that's way more than 2 million. That's way more than many other groups. But one thing I wanted to point out here, one thing they were doing, is the same thing that I talked about in the first video, where the school systems themselves, the unionized, power-hungry, greedy, money-grubbing teachers of today, and staff and administrators, what do? They're turning our own children against their parents, because their parents are the problem. What happens when your children are in first and second grade? What's going on? It happened right here, and I called the school and put a stop to it, because they were upset that our kids would not speak, because they were told by me not to. It's none of the school's business. Do your parents smoke? Do your parents have guns? What do your parents talk about when you're at home at night? Do your parents have guns? Do they do drugs? Do they drink? And they're bombarding, these Nazi teachers are bombarding your children at 6, 7 years old to know everything there is to know about you. And then they commence to indoctrinating your children. Well, that's exactly what Hitler did. The Nazi Party knew that families, private, coercive groups, not usually under political sway, were an obstacle to their goals. The Hitler Youth was a way to get Hitler's ideology into the family unit. And some members of the Hitler Youth even denounced their parents when they behaved in a way not approved of by the Reich. Now, they're saying denounced. Bull. That was bull. They turned in their parents, and these parents were abruptly arrested by the Nazi Party. You either comply or you die. We know that for a fact, even though the History Channel wants to lie about it. That's exactly what happened. So now when we let's look at, this is more of a straightforward, here's some better truth than what the History Channel of the lefties will ever tell you. Hitler believed that the future of German supremacy would be cemented in its youth. He even said it in 1935. He alone who gains the youth will gain the future. More or less, he who owns the youth owns the future. I said that in the first video. The Hitler Youth, a paramilitary organization comprised of young males between the age of 14 and 18, was directed at fostering this idea. It was also designed to help train future loyalists for the Secret Service, Gestapo, and other Nazi Party organizations. So you see, so when they're talking 3-4 million, that's a lie. Because you see, 90% of the Hitler Youth, of the German youth, were part of this Hitler Youth program, which were soldiers, the Secret Service, the Gestapo, and many other militarized style police officers under Adolf Hitler. You're talking 10, 11 million. 10 to 11 million. And many of them lost their lives by the end of World War II. It did all start back in 1922. An organization called the Adolf Hitler Boy Storm Troop was founded. But when Hitler thought that he had enough people and he was going to go seize power by force, in typical dictator coward style form, as we see in our left-wing Democrat thugs of today, the leaders set back. and they put the useful idiots out in front. So who gets shot? Exactly, the useful idiot. While the one orchestrating the propaganda, the lie, and the violence is protected in the back. Hitler went to jail. When he went to jail, he wrote Mein Kampf, making himself God. But that wasn't the end of it. When he did become in power, all of these other groups were abolished. They were outlawed, turned away. You know, and here again, they're talking, at least here they say 100,000. The other one said, what? 50. 2 million for the History Channel, 4 million on this one. But we know that by their own admission, by 1939, 90% of German youth were part of the Hitler Youth. That's many millions. That's many more than 4. So when he invaded Poland, this is what he had. He had the Hitler Youth. He had this paramilitary youth group that were not taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. They were taught war tactics, hatred, violence, thuggery. You don't need a smart kid to pick up a gun and shoot whoever they are told to shoot. You don't need to be educated. We see that in our youth today, right here in America. Mob rules. Scream, yell, hoop, holler, and not a one of them, if somebody didn't write down their name on a piece of paper, most of the youth today could not even spell their name. Why is it that America spends $865 billion a year in public education and higher education, but yet we rank 36 in math, 26 in science, and 22nd in grammar? Why is that? Because our children are not being taught. They're being indoctrinated. Oh, we can't have homework because that's too stressful for the kids that need to go out and do drugs and party instead. We can't teach them cursive because that is just way too much stress on these young little snowflakes of today, that by high school will be drug addicts and, well, they'll dress like New York hookers. And they'll have no respect. They'll fight against everything and anything because they don't have the intelligence to be a productive part of society. They are dumbed down to the point where they are nothing but mindless, left-wing, useful idiots. And if that offends you, too bad. I'm sick and tired of watching our youth be destroyed by the very people that you claim are trying to save them and trying to teach them. They're not teaching them. Why do your kids hate you? Right here. Right here. Hitler's image in the organization. The youth were taught to worship Hitler and pledge undying loyalty to the point that their devotion to Hitler would exceed their loyalty to their family. Often children would turn parents into state authorities if they felt their parents were a threat to the Nazi Party in any way. They're saying it more properly. They were turned into the authorities, meaning the authorities came knocking on the door, and those parents were taken away. The same thing in China, where the emperor will give you an award. We need you to go home and see if you can find this book. And if you come back with the right book, you will be rewarded. Well, what the child found out when she came back with the right book, which was the Holy Bible, she never saw her parents again. And this is right to today. This was no more than 4 months ago, ladies and gentlemen. This wasn't back 30, 40, 50 years ago. This was 3 to 4 months ago this happened. And what are they doing right here in America today within our schools? They are creating these same kind of dumbed down thugs and bullies. And who do they blame? They blame the parents. But how much authority do the parents have? Can the parents go to the school board and voice their concerns? No, because they're either not given the opportunity to speak, or they are blamed for everything the school system is doing while the school system rapes them for another. Like in this town, $44 million for 2,954 students. $44 million. I showed you the chart on the first part, on part 1. That is a raping of society by the very entity we are forced by the federal government to send your kids to. But I digress. So this is what happened. And even right here, the legacy of the movement is that it is seen as the most corrupt and wide-scale form of child abuse and political indoctrination ever. It is still used as an example to this day of how the state can abuse its power in its control of the young. Used as an example? It's not used as an example. It is in full-fledged play today. It is child abuse. When you start pounding your 7, 8-year-olds in your country that the boys do not have to be boys, the boys cannot be boys, they have to be sissies. You boys have to cut that penis off. We don't want you to be boys, you need to be girls. Oh, and for you little girls, oh, well, you can be boys if you want. For any child that does not bow down and accept what God sees as an abomination before him, they are thrown in detention, they are suspended. You need to seek counseling for your son because he refuses, and he's very intolerant, and he's very bullying of those of transgenderism. At 8 years old? Really? Do you understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's going on in our schools today? Do a simple search. Bullies in schools, and the videos just come strolling right forth. Bullying, bullying, beating, bullying, beating, bullying, bullying, beating. It just doesn't stop, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't stop. Hey? And the schools do nothing. The schools create this and then blame the parents. Why? Look at the drugs. Oh, let's have all, it's just drug use, drug use, drug use. And you know something? My boys told me the truth. Do you know how to get rid of most of the teachers in your school? Demand drug testing of the teachers. You will find the majority of the teachers that are teaching your students go home at night and are whacked out on drugs. One teacher even leaned forward to pick up some paper that had slid off his desk, and his glass bowl fell out on the floor in front of the students. My son, he told me, he said, Dad, he says, how can they speak out against drugs when the teachers are stoned all the time? He's got a friggin' bowl in his pocket. This school system down here, that it's well covered up. There were 5 child molesters been arrested out of this school system. But you don't hear that in the news now, do you? walking little girls right out of the school down the road just to molest them. Texting the little boys, meet me at this place, just so she can have sex with them. This is what's in our schools. So how is this the parents' fault? Well, I just wanted to take a second here to thank you all for those that do watch. If you're watching this on Zoxy, go back and watch part 1 if you have not done so already. And on YouTube, same thing, run to my channel and watch part 1. And in part 3, following this part, I will show where this system that they created, this group of this generation that they created, has gone wrong. It's turned on them, so to say. It was not what they expected, and they did not get the result that they wanted. So again, thank you very much for your time and your support. Share with those you love. They need the truth, as we all do. God bless. When now we even see this, why would the feds want to put cops, more and more cops, into the schools? This is what happens when you do not teach your children. So of course now when you have all the left-wing publications, well of course they're speaking out against it, because the last thing they want when they orchestrate another false flag and they go forth and they send some wacko in to kill a bunch of students in a school, they don't want armed cops or anybody around to stop it. You need to be a victim. So we don't want, I mean, it's crazy. CNN, why are they there? And the article, when you read the article, they attack the Republicans. Come down here. This is the one I really like. More cops in schools mean more black kids in the criminal system, is what it says. The Huffington Post is attacking Republicans because they want, the more we add security or police forces and so on in schools, the more likely it is the students who are already at risk of being seen as potential troublemakers get swept up into the justice system or suspended and pushed out of schools. Well, of course. Because we need to blame the parents. The underlying message here that comes out is this the parents' fault? That these unruly kids. It's not the fact that from 6 years old and on, these kids have been indoctrinated beyond belief. Well, they're not being educated at all. Washington Post here carries on. Baltimore Public Schools, they're attacking them. And it just goes on and on, ladies and gentlemen. It really does. But what I want to show you here of driving the point home of what is going on in our schools with the indoctrination. Number one, we know, I've already mentioned, the kids have no form of education whatsoever. This here, if I back this up, you will see this is the home page of the South Portland, Maine High School. Guess what their sports team is? Right here, ladies and gentlemen. Home of the Red Riots. Who names their sports teams Red Riots? Riots. Portland and South Portland are the two biggest cesspools in Maine. They are no different than Los Angeles, California, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, New York City, Chicago. They are the lowest form of life known to man are in these two cities right here in Maine, Portland and South Portland. Maine would be a lot better without it. But now, once the indoctrination comes forth, ladies and gentlemen, what's really disturbing is what I found here. I've told you many times that, we know under Barack Obama, see something, say something, see something, say something. But it doesn't stop the violence. It doesn't stop. It doesn't make any. But look what they're doing to the kids. Speak up. Share concerns about your classmates or school's safety. And let's see what the criteria is. Easily report bullying, planned fights, students in crisis, threats of violence, weapons in school, other urgent situations. Can you imagine? You can't even be relaxed, go to school, try to learn something, and go home because they are encouraging your classmates to be narcs, to create something where there's not anything. Oh, he said this, or she said that, or just fabricate anything, and they don't care. They do not care. This is what they're creating. So what happens when you go out into society? It's the same thing I sit right here and listen to on the scanner, the emergency scanner. I hear a minimum of 40 phone calls per week of, I'm following this crazy driver or this bad driver or they're crossing, and it's narcs. Non-stop narking. 95% of all those calls end the same way, in nothing. The cops chase this car down, find this car, get right there and find that. Huh? Well, geez, I dropped something, or, well, yeah, so I swayed a little bit. But you have people now convinced in society, the same way Adolf Hitler got his Hitler Youth to turn in their parents, now they're doing the same thing here. So when they go out into society, they think it's okay to constantly call the cops on anything or anybody that they don't agree with. This is why we've lost our youth. We need to start standing up to these school systems, ladies and gentlemen. Because if not, see this right here? You can look at the same thing, and all you have to do, how the United States school system turned a generation of kids into Nazi thugs and useful idiots. It's always been that way. If you don't take back control of your school system and take control of your children like I did, you will lose them. You will lose them to this Nazi-style system. And that I can guarantee you, without doubt, that you will lose your children. Your own children will be calling the cops on you and fabricating whatever it is that they want to fabricate, because that is what the school has taught them to do. This is what the school system is teaching them to do. Speak out. So when they get into society, this is what they're doing to their fellow man. They're fabricating whatever they can. We need to take back our youth. Take back our schools. We have nobody to blame for what's going on than ourselves for not removing our children from these schools and demanding this indoctrination stop. It has to. There are lawsuits popping up now. The parents are sick and tired of being stuck with dealing with their children that just don't know how to handle. I'm a boy, but the school says I can't be. Gender identity problems. Mental stress upon them. A little boy Well, the parents are suing the crap out of the school, and I'm glad. And they need to. We need to stop this runaway freight train from the left. It's time we put a wall up in front of them and stop being shamed. Stop feeling ashamed because you're Twitter or your Facebook fans. They don't love you. If they did, they'd be telling you the truth. They'd stand up with you, but they don't, because it's all about them, their ego, and their popularity. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have much time left. Time is short. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is No Way Out.